Welcome to For the Record. I'm Elena LaQuatra, and today, the first installment in a two-part episode of For the Record, all focused on the legacy of Pittsburgh's favorite neighbor. We are talking about Fred Rogers, the beloved host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, whose legacy is still very much alive 23 years after he passed away. Later in this half hour, I'll bring you my interview with Mr. McFeely himself, David Newell. Still ahead on For the Record, my sit-down interview with Mr. McFeely himself, actor David Newell, how he's keeping Fred Rogers' legacy alive through what's being called a bookcast. I want to turn now to my interview with David Newell, the man who portrayed Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, as well as John Masiulionis from PR from the Heart. The pair tell me how they're focused on engaging children and parents with reading and how it's something families will see the benefits from for generations. First, let's start with why you both are here. We're celebrating a big anniversary.
We are the 5-year anniversary of the Neighborly Review's Bookcast. It is one of the most popular children's book review programs for parents, educators, librarians across the country and around the world. David and I actually came into one another's lives. It's hard to believe, a little over 6 years ago, had a dear friend, still one of our mutual friends, Colton Tobias, who was a student at Point Park University, and he introduced us to one another. I ended up interviewing David on a program that I had previously called the Shining Star Series. And we said we should do something together, especially based on our mutual affinity of Fred Rogers and Fred's love of literacy and my work as a publicist for children's authors. I said, why not we take the time to do a children's book review program? And even David helped to coin the name, the Neighborly Review's Bookcast. He said, John, is this a podcast? Oh, no, wait a minute. It's a bookcast. And so having the opportunity to really provide dedicated resources of care for children in need, to let them know what's available in the world of children's literature, and to really provide lifelines for, again, parents and educators and librarians. And it's hard to believe we're celebrating the 5-year anniversary of the program this spring.
What podcast or bookcast episode are you on after 5 years?
Now we're on episode 60 and 61, and a perfect timing because we're celebrating National Family Literacy Month, as well as National Mental Health Awareness Month. There's some great authors whose books that we have the opportunities to share as part of the 5-year anniversary celebration of the Neighborly Review's Bookcast. Shireen Edelblut's Fintail series. She has a story called Keys to My Heart and Garage Sale Goldmine, which teach kids about the importance of financial literacy and financial responsibility, to be able to kind of break the stigma with having those sorts of sensitive conversations. And then Dr. Susie Gray, who is a former elementary school teacher and practitioner in Southern California. She has 2 children's books called Lily and the Fairy Cake, a story for autism spectrum disorder, along with Teddy the Bear, a story for anxiety, and really doing her part to be able to let families who have neurodivergent children or anxious or sensitive children know that it's okay, that they can embrace their strengths and celebrate their differences, while also be with those big feelings and big emotions that come up along the way.
And as a parent, I love that at children's books, even at that level, they're focusing on these very important messages, and they're not all just kind of simple and basic. Some of them go very deep and are teaching kids very important lessons at very young ages.
I've learned a lot by reading children's books. I really have. I didn't know that much about autism, and one of the books is about autism, and I didn't know all of that. And so I was educated too. So you can learn a lot in children's literature. You really can.
Even if you're an adult.
That's right.
If you're an adult, you can learn. Yes. I got to ask, how do you guys find these books? There's so many children's books out there. How do you go about the process of picking which ones to feature on the bookcast?
Well, I'm very fortunate doing PR publicity work for children's authors, so having the opportunity to work with celebrities, prominently traditionally published authors, but also self-published and hybrid published authors. There's so many books that are in children's literature that, to a certain extent, parents and educators and librarians, they're feeling bombarded, not necessarily knowing what's a quality book. So when a book is featured on the Neighborly Review's Bookcast, they know that both the author and the story is both trustable and trustworthy. It's suitable for their children. And one of the reasons why the Bookcast stands out is we do our part to make gentle, warm invitations. We don't to try to have the books come across as like infomercials in any way, shape, or form. We really allow the parents and the educators and the librarians, the caregivers, to make their own decisions in the process. But it has been an absolute blast. If you would have told me growing up, little inner child John, that, David and I, watching him on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, that we would really be, in many respects, keeping Fred's memory and legacy alive, because he was a huge proponent of children's literacy, but blazing our own individual trails and inspiring these authors who are doing amazing work in the world to continue doing what it is that they're doing for children.
And we don't review them in a critical way. We just present what's available. So we don't have a critical opinion. We just think, here are some books that parents may be interested in presenting to their children, and that's our approach.
That's so special. John, you have a very unique perspective as someone who works with children's book authors, and you too, as Mr. McFeely from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. How special is it for you to still be involved in working with children all these years after that iconic show aired?
Oh, to me, the program never went off the air. I've mentioned a little earlier that I thought I had a job for 1 year when we started taping the program in 1967.
Yes.
And here I am talking to you about books and literacy and books related to Mr. Rogers and other authors' books too. It's been a wonderful ride, and I'm still have a long ride to go. I'm still delivering.
You're still delivering. Oh, that is iconic. I love that. How have you seen your Bookcast evolve over the last 5 years?
Well, we actually started the Bookcast really when the pandemic, we weren't necessarily in the heat of the pandemic, so to speak, but it was shortly afterwards. And at that particular point in time, kids were still moving through remote learning, virtual learning. Literacy rates were lower, and it was taking some states all across the country some time to really bounce back in the process. So taking the time to be able to not only do the episodes remotely like we do for the majority of the time, but we're very fortunate to have a relationship with one of the crown jewels in Pittsburgh, Point Park University. We broadcast our in-studio episodes of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast from their Center for Media Innovation. So twice per year I travel from San Diego to Pittsburgh to do the in-studio episodes with David. So really having that Steel City connection makes an incredible difference. And knowing the fact that the Bookcast is not going away in any time soon, we're excited to be able to continue the Bookcast heading into the summer reading season. One of the stories that we're going to be featuring is Ruth Dawn Shevlin's Esmeralda and the Lollipop Tree. Ooh. And that's going to be teaching kids about the importance of sharing, because as we know, David, sharing means caring. It's for, when you take the time to share food or just share experiences, life feels more enriching and more enjoyable. And of course, then we head into the start of the back to school season and the holiday season. We're living in a very interesting world right now, and I think that ultimately one of the things that we can agree on, no matter what side of the aisle that we're on, is we want the best for our children. And again, knowing the fact that there are these dedicated resources of care. When Fred actually spoke in front of Senator John Pistori to try to secure $20 million worth of funding for PBS back in the day, he used that term. What I do through Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is a resource of care, and in many respects, children's books are resources of care so many years later in the process. So just knowing that parents and educators and librarians, that they can be fully supported right now, and we're just doing our part to be able to let them know that they're not alone and they have some incredible support along the way.
And you have a daughter, a son?
I do. A daughter, a 1.5-year-old, who loves to read. Her favorite spot in the playroom is her little bookshelf. I mean, she pulls them out and reads them and throws them, and I got to clean them all up. But she loves to read, and I'm so glad. And I see the importance of literacy even at that very young age of 18 months old.
You'll have to introduce her to the podcast, or the Bookcast.
The Bookcast. So that was my next question. Is the Bookcast more geared toward these, kids who are listening to podcasts, or is it more for parents and what they should be buying?
Both.
Okay.
Knowing the fact that with us as adults, we still have that inner child within us. Yes. And the number of parents and educators, librarians, even grandparents that we've connected with that have said, these children's books have helped me to nurture and heal my own inner child and strengthen the relationship that I have with my little one, with my grandparent, with my students in the classroom as well, too. But we keep the program kid-friendly as well, too. So no matter if you're a little one or if you're a little one at heart, you have the opportunity to enjoy the program.
And I think at least my major goal is to introduce children to books. Yeah. Even if they're just holding a book, a picture book, start with that. That's so important to have books.
And you've always said for a long period of time that reading is something that is both taught but also caught as well, too.
That's right. Fred Rogers had a saying that, see, learning is not taught, but caught. If you're reading a book to yourself, your children will see you reading, and they'll catch that. Yeah. Did you understand?
Absolutely.
And that's very important. Just reading in front of your children is a start, I think.
Absolutely. Children are mimicking parents' behaviors and adults' behaviors from a young age. So show them that you love to read.
And in a way, it's good because it's a book they're reading. Yeah. And yes, the video games are here to stay. You can't deny that. But sometimes books are on video, too. At least you're reading. But I like the hardcore book.
Me, too. I'm old-fashioned in that way. I love having a book in my hands and reading one.
It just, and a new book, when you open it up, remember in school when you got your books, you would have to open it up and then turn each page to make sure you didn't break the binding.
Yes.
And it's showing care and respect for books, too.
Absolutely.
And respect for reading and a respect for learning. And that's what I like about what we're doing, that introducing books, just having them amongst us.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Elena LaQuatra. Today, the second and final installment in our series of For the Record episodes focused on the legacy of Pittsburgh's favorite neighbor, Fred Rogers. I also began my sit-down interview with David Newell, the man who portrayed Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and John Masiulionis of PR from the Heart. John hosts, and David has been a recurring guest on what they call the Neighborly Review's Bookcast, focused on children's books and supporting literacy for children. That Bookcast is now celebrating 5 years. Let's go back now to my conversation with David and John. This might be a hard question for the both of you. Can you each tell me your favorite book that you featured over the last 5 years?
Oh, my heavens.
I know.
I would, well, one that comes to mind is a story by Deborah Saraceni. She wrote a children's book called Allie Protects the La Jolla Seals.
Okay.
Living in San Diego, one of the reasons why I do the work that I do, part of my long-term vision is to help create a children's hospice for terminally ill children. And so anytime that I have the opportunity to work with a San Diego-based author, when people travel to San Diego, they connect with the seals and the sea lions and the importance of protecting the oceans, protecting those animals. But we've had the opportunity over the years to interview some incredible authors. When we do the episodes in studio at Point Park University's Center for Media Innovation, we've literally had authors travel from across the country and around the world to join us. Dr. Jim Price, The Adventures of Harold from the Hood series, I know is one that actually comes to mind as well, too. Dr. Schaefer Stedron, who wrote a children's book, an amazing one called The Boy and His Brightly Colored Blocks. But one of the cool things, in addition to sharing the stories, seeing that we're very fortunate to have over 30,000 subscribers on the PR from the Heart YouTube channel. So just knowing the fact that we've been able to curate this audience over the years, and word has traveled fast on the program, but just knowing the fact that we're doing this in service. And that's the most important thing. Is I think that one of the things that I learned from Mr. Rogers growing up, and even through the course of my adult life, is in many respects when we focus on the we, the me gets taken care of. And so knowing the fact that when you give back, you help and you support, especially those who are doing their part to fulfill their own missions and their own purposes, such as children's authors, it really is a good feeling, if I may use the words of Fred Rogers.
I remember my favorite book, and it was called Mom and Her Big Red Truck.
Okay.
And it was a little boy who loved driving with his mom in her big red truck. And I thought that, because it's usually, you would think, Mom has a truck. Yeah. Which I think is wonderful.
That was Allison Paul Klakowitz, I believe, as Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck.
Okay, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful book because it has a woman and her truck and her son. That was my favorite. And it's very whimsical, too. It's that's what I like in children's book, is the whimsy. A lot of books, children's book has a lot of whimsy in it, and that's what I like specifically.
I think that there were two other brief ones that actually come to mind. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Bob Archuleta. He actually wrote a children's book called Christine's Magical Smile. Dr. Bob is the founder of Noah's Children's Hospice and Palliative Care Center in Richmond, Virginia. The story was written in honor of his daughter, Christine, who had actually passed away in the process. He teaches kids about the importance of smiling and how his this little girl was reminding all of us the importance of just allowing our inner light to shine through smiling in the process. Such a beautiful book, because if we can just take the time to smile, we're brightening our own day, and we're brightening other people's days as well, too. And Carrie Hitchcock, The Adventures of Baby Brown Bear. Many people know Carrie for her work as a children's author. They also know her husband, who's also one of the inspirations for the story, Russell Hitchcock, the lead singer of Air Supply. Okay. So the iconic band. So their adventures together has inspired this beautiful series. So again, whether it be celebrities whose books we featured on the program, prominently traditionally published authors or self-published, hybrid published authors, having this platform where all books are seen and felt and heard and honored, and the authors behind those stories, so that kids can allow themselves to express themselves through the love and joy of literacy.
I have to say, I love the names of all these books you guys are talking about. They are, like you said, so whimsical, these names. They're beautiful.
And we'll give you names and you can get them.
Please do. I'm like, I got to go back and watch this episode of For the Record so I can write these all down and buy them for myself and my daughter.
Because the teddy bear, we're reviewing this tomorrow, right? The teddy bear book, which is... we'll tell you about that one, too.
Teddy the Bear Story for Anxiety.
I love a good teddy bear story. What do you see for the next 5 years of the Bookcast?
Well, we're putting out good health for the both of us, because, you know, without your health, you can't have the wealth. But just, again, knowing the fact that it's long since been said, and I firmly believe this with the work that I do as a publicist for children's authors, when I immerse myself in children's books, it really keeps you eternally youthful in many respects. So when you're combining that alongside the fact of helping and supporting and being of service as well, too, this is one of the most fun things that I've ever done throughout the course of my entire natural adult life. And again, just knowing the fact that in some way, shape, or form, to be able to give thanks to David for all the work that he's done, that he's continuing to do in many ways, shapes, and forms. It really is an incredible feeling. And I want to take the time to acknowledge you and your station as well, too, because I know that just, again, in the world in which we live in, there's a lot of, I'll use the term, interesting things to talk about on air, but knowing the fact that if there's something that we can all gravitate around, such as the importance of taking the time to read to our children and to be able to help them become the best and highest versions of themselves as well, too. The fact that you guys are inviting us to talk about the Bookcast, we're extraordinarily grateful. And here's to 5 more years plus, David.
But you said, yes, I hope 5 more years plus. Yep. But you said read to your children. And I think that is one of the most important things you can do, is read to your child. And I'm talking about young children. Yeah. It's not so much what you're reading, it's the closeness you have with the child. It's that one-on-one, and the book is an excuse for that closeness. Not an excuse, but it's a connection.
Absolutely. And it's also the bonds that are created as well, too, and those bonds will last forever.
So books can create bonds within families, and I think that just keeps us moving with books. I mean, sometimes you take it for granted, books. But I grew up not having television. That I was pre-television. I would listen to the radio and read books. Yeah. Do you ever hear? And he's never heard of them. But there was a series of books when I was growing up called Uncle Wiggily. Have you ever heard of it?
I have never heard of Uncle Wiggily, no.
Well, Uncle Wiggily was a rabbit. Okay. And that was his, again, whimsical. Yes. But my mother knew that I loved Uncle Wiggily. And she found out where the author lived. He lived in New Jersey. And on a trip to New York, she made an appointment with, his name is Howard R. Garris, and took me to meet him. And I'll never forget that. And I think that just solidified my love of books. Meeting the actual person who wrote the books I was reading all those years, or have been read to also. Then I started to read them when I was growing up. But he also wrote, you might not have heard this either, the Bobbsey Twins. You ever hear the Bobbsey Twins?
I've heard of the Bobbsey Twins.
I think he wrote those too under a different name.
Okay.
But I read those books as a kid over and over and over again.
And your love of literacy was instilled in you at a very young age, and it sounds like your parents were so supportive of your love of reading.
And I think that's where to begin, at a very young age, introducing books. Again, as just reading a book in front of a child.
Absolutely. What message would you give to parents about the Bookcast
about reading, about literacy? What's that one message you want parents to take away from watching this?
There really is something about reading. I use the term a lifeline in many respects. And again, especially in the world in which we're living, we can feel overwhelmed, we can feel stressed out. There's something inherently beautiful about reading. I always, I call it like a spiritual science experiment. Check in with how you're feeling, check in with how your little ones are feeling, take the time to read that story, and see how you feel afterwards in the process. There's an expression that David and I utilize, actually two expressions on the program. Number one is to take the time to support the pillars of our community, local libraries and children's and independent bookstores. Pittsburgh really has a treasure trove of those. The city is very fortunate as well, too. And we always share the phrase, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, because ultimately when we take the time to remind children, as Fred would say, that they're loved, that they're special, we always like to add in that they're whole, they're healthy, they're complete just the way that they are. They can see their own inherent worth, their own inherent value. Reading is that ultimate lifeline that helps to walk the children of the world home. And we're just doing our part to do that in some small way.
I love that. I will say, after reading a book with my daughter, I do feel like a child again. I feel so youthful, and just, it gives you a very special feeling, and it brings you back to childhood when you're reading these books.
And I think she'll remember you're reading those books, too.
I hope so.
I remember it very well. My mother and father both reading to me.
So special.
And I think that's what got my interest in reading. And then eventually in television, but...
Yes.
Still ahead on For the Record, looking back and looking forward. Some final thoughts from the men behind the Neighborly Review's Bookcast. Welcome back to For the Record. If you've been a longtime fan of our show, you know that these past 2 weeks are not the first time actor David Newell has appeared on our show. He also joined us for an interview at the Heinz History Center in early 2025, and he shared a story about the history of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood that not many people have heard. The show's broadcast in Pittsburgh actually began right here at WTAE Channel 4.
Well, more than an episode, there was a time that Channel 4 was having some lead up to the holidays. And it was a special holiday month that Channel 4 was having. And Fred, that's where Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was first seen in the United States.